So this is, I should have borrowed Matt's slide, the train crash slide, because this is either going to be good or train crash. I've got 15 minutes, and I've got 24 slides, and you're going to decide which slides I'm going to do, and I'm going to do as many as I possibly can. So, have you got them all up yet, Lou?
No.
Oh, hurry up. Okay, while she's doing that. So this book started to turn up on desks in our office, and I'm sure you started to see it as well, where you work as, it's power, good idea. It's the Google Sprint book, and basically it's a book that tells you how you can solve all your problems in 1 week's worth of concerted effort to think of some ideas, design some stuff, test some stuff, come out at the end of it like heroes. So what could possibly go wrong in a week's worth of sprint? That's basically what I'm going to talk about now, because we've done sprints, we've done them well, we've done them badly, and I've also talked to some colleagues in other businesses, and they've told me all the things that they've done wrong, and so like, don't do this. So before we get going, do I need to tell you what sprints are, or can I move on? Excellent. That'll save us more time. So here we go. Pick a number, somebody. 12. We'll do 12. Oh, okay. So a sprint is not a place to prove a point. So if you come into a sprint because you know that it's roughly going to be focusing on a particular area and you've got your pet project, whatever you do, don't bring it in there and say, hey, I've got this great idea. Because particularly if you're one of the stakeholders or a senior person, everybody else is going to defer to it like the hippo, the highest paid person in the room, highest paid opinion in the room. So not the place to settle an argument. That's why Google mandate that when you're sketching and when you're storyboarding, you do it anonymously. And when you're voting on things, nobody knows who's done what. It's only after that point you tell each other, oh, that was mine. It wasn't very good, was it? Sorry. If you are absolutely insistent on bringing something into a sprint, make sure you've got 2 ideas that can compete against each other so that you don't end up just forcing through a bad idea through the sausage machine. Next one. 16? I can just pretend I heard you. So at the end of the week, you're going to do some testing. So you're going to get 5 or 6 people to come in. You're going to stick them down in front of whatever it is that you've prototyped and ask them to have a go with it. The last thing you want to be doing is Thursday trying to ring around saying, anybody want to come in tomorrow and help us? Or worse still, going around your colleagues in the office and saying, do you mind representing one of the user audiences? As soon as you know, roughly speaking, what area you're going to be focusing on, book some people in. And generally speaking, if you're the facilitator, you can do that for the rest of the team. 3. So there are people who are going to come to your sprints who are going to sit there like this. Or worse still, they're going to get their phone out and they're going to be doing this. Or they're going to open up their laptop and they're going to start doing their work. And if you're not careful, you'll say, would you mind shutting the laptop? And that's the point at which they explode, take their laptop, storm out. Everybody looks around and like, oh, she was a bit cross, wasn't she? You can avoid this. And the best way to avoid this is to actually, when you're thinking of running a sprint, look for people who you're going to get into the sprint and then speak to them one-to-one and say, okay, this is what a sprint is about and this is what you're going to be doing. Is this what you want to do? Do you want to be involved in this or do you feel like this isn't for you? And if they say this isn't for me, that's fine, let them bow out now. If they're really, really important, you can probably bring them into the sprint at some point to act as an expert. 1. Oh yeah. So there's this conflict between getting things done and research, and we sometimes see it in TradeMe, and I've seen it in other businesses as well. So like the squads are all absolutely geared up to deliver stuff. They want to ship stuff, see if people are using it, see if it's good. Research is done by other people. Now, squads have been kind of trained over the last few years that design is kind of like a thing that everybody can do, and they're quite happy to get involved in design. That's why these are called design sprints, not research sprints. But let me tell you, actually, these are research sprints. And Google have been very careful to take all the words that say research out of the book. But if you struggle to get research done in your organization, this is a perfect way to actually sneak it under the wire. And actually, at the end of the week, you'll find that people are much more open to the concept of more research. 23. Dealing with a positive outcome. So you come to the end of the sprint, you plonk the thing in front of people, they test well with you, they kind of say it's really great, seems to hit all the right spots. And you've got this massive backlog, so you stick it on the end of the backlog, and then in about 3 months' time, you come to it, and the idea has gone completely stale. Because quite a lot of what you've had in the sprint is entirely in the head of the people who are actually in the sprint. You might have written a few post-its down, and you might have written some half-assed user stories, but it's not really anything like the kind of vibe that you had in the room when you were actually doing the sprint. So it's really important, if you're planning a sprint, to actually plan some capability in the squad who are going to take up this work at the end of the sprint. 20. Oh, another mind the gap slide. Hooray. So if you're testing, it's a really good idea to leave gaps between the individual test sessions. Now, we know that as researchers because you get tired during the day and you want a cup of tea and you want to visit the bathroom. But in a sprint, there are other good reasons why you might want to leave a gap as well. So you've tested the first person. You went, and you didn't really know your script particularly well, and you asked all these stupid questions, and you go, oh, that was really bad. So you come back with your colleagues, and you write better questions. And you go, that was a stupid question, let's refine it. And of course, in between each one of the user testing sessions, you can go to a whiteboard and go, like, what did you see? And you write it down. Because if you wait till the end of all of the testing, and you try and say, well, what did we see? All you're going to do is just confirmation bias. We definitely saw this. You probably didn't. If you write it down after each test, you're more likely to capture what actually happened. Number 9 and then number 7. So us UX researchers at TradeMe have basically got this box which is full of Sharpies and whiteboard pens. We keep them separate after an incident. And Post-it notes. And our colleagues basically know about this box. They come and say, can we use the box? Because we'd like to run a workshop. We say, yeah, because we're really nice people. And then it comes to running a design sprint. You open up the box, and all the pens are mashed. The whiteboard pens don't work, and you keep trying a different one, and all the Post-it notes are all dog-eared and dog-ended. And it's like the grit in the machine. If you look at the book and if you look at all the Google videos, they basically mandate like 12 of this and 12 of that and 2 whiteboards. It sounds really nerdy and kind of like, do I have to? Yes, you do. Because otherwise you're going to get to that point like, oh shit, I'll just be back in a minute, and you're off down to the stationery warehouse to buy Post-its. What was the one? 7, and then 2, beg your pardon. Okay, so one of the things that tends to happen in sprints is that you make decisions on ideas, and then people want to go back over those ideas. They want to relitigate things and say, well, just a minute, something we said in this thing here, I still think that's got some value. Like, shut up, we need to move on. We need to move on because, we've got the end of the week, we need to actually achieve something. It's a sensible idea if you are the facilitator to create some rules of engagement, which, in that one-to-one, when you meet with the people who are sprinting before the sprint, you say, this is the kind of thing we're going to agree to do in the sprint, just so that we don't end up arguing with each other and putting knives in each other's backs or, sticking Sharpies up noses. And then you post that on the wall, and at any point someone starts to go off track, relitigate something, you can say, just remember the rules of engagement? We all agreed to those? It's a little bit passive-aggressive, but it gets things done. And what was that? 2. So there are going to be some people who you really want to get into the sprint because they've got all the knowledge in their head. So you go and ask one of your colleagues, and she says, oh, right, I can give you Tuesday afternoon, and I can give you probably a bit of Thursday. You've got some choices, really. You can chop the sprint in 2, like a bit one week, bit the next week. You can try and compress it into 4 days. Done that, don't do that. It's horrible. It's basically pell-mell. Or you can exclude that person. Probably not what you want to do, given that they've got all the knowledge. So you've got probably your best option is to turn that person into the expert that you're going to wheel in to the room at the point at which on day 1, when you're mapping out your problem space, your process, she's going to come in and say, you've missed this. That's specific to this kind of user. And she's going to fill in all the gaps for you. And you can also make that person the decider, the one who comes in and looks at all the sketches and looks at all the storyboards that you created and said, like, that's the best one. That's the best one by a long way. And then 5. Okay. This is a mistake that I made, and this is also a mistake that ex-colleague of mine, Heath Sadlier, who works at Neighbourly, has made in the past. And that is, you think, right, I'm going to run this sprint inside this company for these people, and I'm going to do the best job, and I'm going to tell them we're definitely going to deliver something towards the end of the week. If you're the facilitator, you're not delivering anything. If you start taking on the responsibility, you'll be looking at your watch all the time, and you'll be going, oh, just move aside, I'll help you with the prototyping. And the people in the sprint will go, yeah, great, this is excellent, someone else is doing the work for me. And they won't learn anything, and it'll be all your intentions. And if you're doing it as a consultant coming in, and you've put your neck on the line, that's a really bad position to be in. So it's entirely down to the people in the sprint team to deliver something, not you. I'm going to do the next one as well. And people in the team, you cannot avoid taking responsibility. So when it comes towards the end of the week, and you're a BA and you don't do prototyping, and you've never done user testing, that's not your time to get out the phone or say, I'm just going to go back to the office and check a few things. Everybody in the sprint's there for the duration. Otherwise, resentment's going to develop, or people are just going to slack off and say, well, if they're not going to bother, I'm not going to bother, because there's always something that can be done. If you're a BA, you could probably start documenting the sprint if it hasn't already been documented, or you can help write the script, or you can create a little template for taking notes when actually the user testing happens. Next one. 4. So the best people to facilitate aren't necessarily the people who are best paid. And that's, generally speaking, because they're not going to be responsible for trying to deliver this at the end. So they're not part of the team who are actually trying to deliver it. So they've got no impetus to drive it through. And they're probably the one, highest paid person in the room, whose opinion is going to dominate. So if you find that you're being invited to a sprint that's actually being proposed by the CTO or a product manager who's pretty senior, you pretty much know it's going to hit the buffers. So look for someone who's actually going to be delivering the piece of work at the end of it, rather than somebody who has a pet project that they want to force down your throat. Beg your pardon? 21. I've been around that roundabout. That's awesome. People actually come out with deck chairs to watch people have accidents. It's in Swindon in the UK. Sometimes you come to the end of a sprint and you haven't finished. And if you're in a development situation, if you're in a squad who's developing and you come to the end of a sprint, you just stick it to the next sprint. That's perfectly natural. The sort of feeling is that a design sprint, a Google sprint, should basically deliver everything at the end of the sprint. It may not necessarily. So there is a possibility you'll go around again. It may be that you just need to tweak something and test it a wee bit more. It may be that you want to start a whole new sprint because the whole thing was a complete failure and your whole ideas didn't work. That's fine. But make sure that you've got some idea that might happen before you go into the sprint, and warn people that, hey, this isn't a magic cure-all. 13. So Heath, my colleague that I told you about a minute ago, told me about this story where they started a sprint on day 1 with the intention of full week's worth of stuff. They booked the user testing, and they started mapping out the area, and they started trying to understand who the users were. And someone said, look, I don't think we really know who these people are at all. I'm really worried that we're going to come to the end and we have built something for people with no idea whether they exist or not. I think what we should do is some research. He said, great, let's go out on the street and see if we can find some of these people. They basically stopped the sprint dead in its tracks right there. This process is not a magical process. Basically, people have been doing this kind of thing for years in terms of running workshops. Just because you're going to follow this process doesn't mean it's going to deliver something magical. It's okay, you can just stop at any point if you want to. Oop. Beg your pardon. Let's get to the end. Final slide. Try not to kill yourself. This is a really, really useful thing to remember when you're in the middle of a sprint, and that is that it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. At the end of it, something useful will come out of it. Either you'll have learned something, but it's not very good, and you'll have discarded a whole bunch of ideas that you would have perhaps otherwise stuck in the backlog, or you've come out with something awesome. There will be a point in the middle you want to kill each other and maybe yourself, but that's fine. That's natural and happens every time. Whatever you do, don't get to the point of, this is awesome, let's do it again next week, because you will kill yourself. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much.